Hello, friends. Today we have a very special guest with us, Craig from Jar to Table Creations. He has uh, 15 years of experience gardening, and also he's the creator and owner of Jar to Table Creations, where they help you install, design, and do maintenance for your edible food garden. He also has a lot of experience with carpentry, which helps, for designing, and also with cooking. He used to be a chef, and we're very honored to have you here. And today we're gonna try to talk about the fall garden. So how you doing, Craig?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Just like an icebreaker, what's the hardest plant you you have grown for the fall garden?
The hardest plant is for me is the one that takes the longest. I hate I
Perfect.
hate waiting.
Yes. All right. So, Craig, what's the fall garden for you? What's the fall garden?
Well, the summer garden is all about fruit. It's the tomatoes and the zucchinis and the melons and all the colors and everything. And fall garden is all about vegetables. So it's a lot of green, a lot of leafy greens, collards, all your brassicas, your broccoli, cauliflower. But it's fall is definitely fall and winter gardening is definitely about vegetables. It's usually by the time my clients or myself get to about February or March, we're all pretty done eating kale. Um, it's just tons of greens, which is good. And if you know how to save them and you know how to preserve them, you get them throughout the summer as well.
All right. Wh- wh- What's the usual date for the fall garden? You know, people say that here there's now no four seasons. We have two seasons, which is cool and warm.
Yep.
But usually, what's like the dates for the fall or cool garden?
Well, it can vary quite a bit because it really depends on temperature. So fall here, I run into this a lot with people who are from other parts of the country, the Midwest, the Northeast, where they're used to having a 6 month growing season. Whereas here we have a 12-month growing season. So you're correct that we have a hot season, which is pretty much from April or May until about now. And then we have our cool season, but the cool season is a little tougher because we have to wait for nighttime temperatures to come down. The things that the thing that controls all plants is soil temperature and hours of sunlight. So your summer crops can feel the sunlight starting to go away, even though it's still hot. They can feel the hours shrinking every day, and that's why your plants are starting to die out and finish up for the summer season. In the wintertime, the plants need the opposite. They need short days and cool nights. And the reason why is because the cool nights keep the soil temperature cold. If your soil temperature gets much over 65 degrees, not much of your fall garden is going to grow. It's not going to do well. It needs cold roots. So we need our nighttime temperatures to be below about 60 degrees Fahrenheit consistently before we can start planting. And in San Diego, that can vary from mid-October to mid to late November. It really depends. Um, so instead of giving you a date, because that can vary so much from year to year, you're looking for a soil temperature. You're looking for cool soil, ideally under 60 degrees. And that can differ quite a bit just depending on where you live in San Diego. If you live out in East County, Santee, El Cajon, La Mesa, and you're down in a valley, you might get those nighttime temperatures a lot faster than somebody who maybe lives on the coast or somebody who is living in the more urban city where temperatures are a little bit warmer.
Um, so it's not a one size fits all. It's like an average, like average rainfall, average Santa Ana winds. average temperatures, but you gotta be kind of ready, right, for the season. And then
Yes.
once you start seeing that, then it's ready.
Well, exactly. So by the time we get to September, the summer garden is basically done at this point. So I spend all of September and the first half of October cleaning out gardens, getting compost, checking my irrigation, making sure nothing is broken, making sure I'm adjusting my timing if need be, knowing that it's not going to be as hot here pretty soon and we might need to start turning the water down. Just getting your garden ready to go so that, yeah, once you hit that, like once it really feels like fall outside, you can go ahead and start planting. But you can't just plant everything. There's some things that you plant that are more heat tolerant and some things that you want to wait a little bit longer to plant that are less heat tolerant. Because even though the temperatures might come down on average by the time we're into November, that there's still a very good chance that in November, December, even January, that we're going to get days that are 80, 85 degrees for multiple days in a row. It just happens here. So if you're planting things that are really heat sensitive, so things like arugula, cilantro, any of your broccoli and cauliflower, they really don't like the heat. So especially if you're planting in raised bed boxes where the soil can warm up a lot faster because it's not insulated by the ground around it, those hot days that we can get, well into the end of the year can kind of ruin your fall garden before it even really gets a chance to get going. So I like to start out with things like kale, chard, oak leaf lettuce, oak leaf meaning an oak shaped leaf lettuce, romaine, peas. Those are all things I would start early in the fall season because they can tolerate a little bit more heat. And then I usually wait until December to start planting everything else.
So you have not only book experience, but a lot of, real life and see what's actually happening in this zone or region
Hmm.
with all the phenomenons that we have. So there's some people that say, oh, start like your broccolis on late August. So what's your experience on that?
They live in a different part of the country if they're starting their broccoli in late August. So late August is when you would plant. I mean, that would make sense to plant if you lived in the Midwest, if you lived in South Dakota. By mid-August, it's starting to get cool. The leaves are starting to turn on the trees. It's the nights are starting to cool down, and yeah, that would be when you would plant your broccoli in order for it to be ready before the first frost. So by October they're harvesting that broccoli, and then by Halloween their entire garden is shut down because it's starting to get below freezing at night. We live in San Diego. We live on the West Coast, coastal climate. We don't get frost unless you live in East County. You live in Alpine or like where I grew up out in East County in Santee. Every once in a while you wake up in the morning and there'd be frost on the grass, but it was rare. So we grow our broccoli through the winter. So I would plant
Okay.
broccoli beginning of
Um,
December. I would plant
so
broccoli beginning
for
of December.
broccoli, when would you start it?
Well, I would start broccoli beginning of December and know it's going to take about 2 months for it to grow. So it'll be ready in February, end of January, beginning of February.
Okay. So for the fall garden, you usually don't grow broccoli.
No, I do. I definitely grow broccoli. I just don't plant it until December.
Okay. And so you have to plant varieties that are uh, better for our area. So what are some of the varieties, and like how many days do they take, or how many months? Because I know there's that want some that take like 60 days, and some others
Mhm.
that take like 110.
So a lot of your, brassica family plants. So that's your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts. Um, Brussels sprouts are the worst when it comes to time. They take forever. They take 180 days or something, like 6 months to grow. Most of your broccoli, cauliflower type plants are going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 months, depending. I a lot of times will, especially for clients with smaller gardens, I won't plant things like head cabbage. So, red or green head cabbage or broccoli that's going to grow in a head. And instead, I'll plant things like Chinese cabbage and sprouting broccoli. So, sprouting broccoli, instead of growing one big crown, it puts out a lot of shoots over a longer period of time so that you're able to harvest it kind of like broccolini. If you're familiar with
Okay.
broccolini, it looks similar to that. So it's a lot of small sprouts of broccoli that you can harvest over the course of like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, as opposed to waiting 2.5 months for one head of broccoli. It's just it's a really inefficient use of time and space in a garden if you only have a small space. But by doing things like your leafing cabbages, like your Chinese cabbages, bok choy, pak choy, things like that,
Yes.
you can just keep breaking those leaves off. It's just a different kind of cabbage. It works with you can use it in all the same applications that you could a head cabbage. You can use it raw. You can cook it. You can do whatever
Yes.
you want with it, just like you could any other cabbage, but you get to harvest off of it for multiple months. And it only takes up this much
Yes.
space. As opposed to your broccoli, which takes up, maybe, I mean, their broccoli leaves can take up 2 square feet, 3 square feet of a garden versus bok choy, which is going to take up 6 square inches.
Okay. So if you want like an educational show off, not show off, but a pretty garden that looks great with broccolis, that's fine. But if you want production in small space, best use of space and time and harvest, you
Yeah.
recommend those that are smaller that you just mentioned, and you can harvest continuously instead of waiting like 4 months, 3 months, and then at the end just get a couple of crops. I mean, one single harvest.
Yeah, you've got the idea. So if you have a large garden and you have the ability to plant 4 or 5 broccoli plants or cauliflower plants, and then 3 weeks later plant another 4 or 5, and then 3 weeks later plant another 4 or 5, and you can succession plant those big, large plants, and you have the room to do that, by all means do it. Most people that I worked with, especially, don't have that kind of space. They're working with 4 foot by 8 foot garden boxes. They might have a handful of them in the yard. So if you think of a 4 foot by 8 foot garden box, I can only plant on the 4 foot side of that box 2 plants. And that's going to take up 1/3 of that garden box for 2 heads of cauliflower or 2 heads of broccoli. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to take up that much real estate with for just 2 plants that you're going to have to wait 2 to 3 months for and get one harvest and then you're done. So
Yes.
instead, I like to try and grow things that are gonna keep producing throughout their life cycle versus waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then just
Okay.
getting your one single harvest. It's just
So,
it's a better way to get more production out of a smaller space.
all right. Um, Thank you. So there you go. Uh, there's another way. If you want to be productive in small spaces, you can use this method or this type of plants or varieties. So I have a
It's just that
question
sure.
regarding the Chinese cabbage, uh,
Mhm.
which sometimes they call Napa cabbage. It's not from Napa Valley, right?
No, no, it's I honestly I don't know why they call it Napa cabbage. I should probably look that up and know that answer, but so that is considered a Chinese cabbage. It's still a head cabbage, so it's still going to take 2.5 months to grow a head of Napa
Okay.
cabbage.
I heard or I read that it was because it's like like a Japanese word, Napa.
Oh, probably.
Like Napa means like, although it's not from Japan, but it's like a Japanese word, something like that. Anyways, the viewers can look it up. Something interesting, but just to let it know, it's not from California. And
No.
that variety, the one we usually get is a hybrid.
I mean, you could say that almost everything is a hybrid at this point.
Okay,
Um,
okay. I just
it's
okay.
it's most of the crops that we grow have been genetically modified in some form or fashion, whether that's GMO, genetic engineering, or whether more likely it was just through crossbreeding, which is just a much slower version of genetic engineering. Um,
Okay, natural.
a lot of
Okay.
well, yeah, I mean, yes, it's more natural to crossbreed things, but when you're crossbreeding, it takes many generations over and over and over again before you kind of get it right. But
Like
most
to
of the
get a
crops that
breed of
we
dogs.
exactly, and most of what we eat, most produce that exists now has been crossbred and modified over millennia to be what it's become today. So it's the reason we have 600 varieties of apples, um, because we've created all those varieties.
Oh, it's very interesting. Um, my next question. So, what are the advantages that we have and disadvantages that we have and that you have faced through in your through your career regarding the cool season or the fall garden? I know we have sometimes the Santa Ana winds, or sometimes we have like very dry periods and very sunny early fall and all that.
Mhm.
So what are some of the challenges that you've seen, and how do you usually overcome them?
Well, 100% the biggest challenge is heat. When we get heat waves all through the winter, and to make that make more sense, when a fall plant starts to feel hot soil temperatures, it makes the plant think, for lack of a better word, that the season is almost over, that spring is coming. And so what that does is that makes the plant bolt or flower. And once those soil temperatures come up and that chemical reaction happens in the plant, there's no going backwards. So you essentially are resetting your fall garden. And this becomes a real problem with fruit trees in particular, because fruit trees, especially deciduous fruit trees like stone fruit, peaches, plums, nectarines, things like that, um, they need a certain number of chill hours, meaning they need a certain number of hours over an extended period of time under 45 degrees Fahrenheit in order for them to have a good production this following spring. And the reason why is because that those low temperatures are what forces the tree to store carbohydrates and energy in its roots, which is the energy that it uses in the spring when it does finally warm up to push the first flush of leaves and to push out flowers. So when we get these heat waves, it's like hitting a giant reset button on all of your fall crops, and you're essentially starting over. So I've had years in the past where we had a heat wave in December, reset the garden that I planted in November, get the garden replanted in December after the heat wave dies down, get another heat wave in January, wipes out everything in the garden. Now we're halfway through our season, if not more, because here sometimes spring starts in February. So then then you get it replanted in January. You're like, okay, I've got, February, March, maybe into April left for my fall garden. And then we get another heat wave in January, and you reset your garden. And then before you know it, you're out of time. And now you don't have enough months left in the growing season to grow things like broccoli or cabbage. So that's definitely the hardest thing to manage. And to be honest, when that happens, there's absolutely nothing I can do about it because I am not Mother Nature. I have no control over what Mother Nature is going to do. It's just my job to try to do the best that I can with what Mother Nature is going to give me. And sometimes Mother Nature is not very nice. It makes it difficult. So that would be the biggest challenge. Some other challenges in the fall can be bugs because it doesn't get cold enough to kill off the bugs. And in most other parts of the country, it gets cold enough when you get the first frost, the mosquitoes die, the caterpillars die, everything kind of dies out and you don't really have any bug problems because it's cold. Well, here, sometimes it doesn't get below 45 degrees ever throughout the entire cold season. And that's not cold enough to kill off the bugs. So we end up with aphid issues on your tender leafy greens that are delicious to all of the sucking bugs. And we get caterpillars in December, January. Snails and slugs can be a real issue in a garden, especially in the cooler, wetter months, because that's the perfect environment for them. So there's definitely challenges. Everybody thinks that because we live in Southern California that it must be just a gardener's dream, but the reality is that it's very nuanced, and there are just different issues. Like, yes, we get to grow plants 12 months out of the year. That doesn't mean it's easy.
Okay, so like they have people that live on different regions. They have to watch out for the last or the first frost date or last frost date
Hmm.
average. We have to watch out for the for some heat waves and
Yeah,
Santa Ana winds and all that. So
yeah.
tell us more about the Santa Ana winds. What's your experience with the Santa Ana winds?
The biggest problem with the Santa Ana winds is that the air is so dry that it can w- pull a lot of moisture out of your plants and out of the soil faster than the sun can evaporate it. So when we get those, humidity levels that are in the teens, 15%, 18%, that's basically like taking a blow dryer to your garden. The wind whipping over your garden is pulling moisture out of the soil and out of those plants faster, much faster than the sun can evaporate it. So when we get Santa Ana winds, you definitely have to do a lot of extra watering. Usually when we have a Santa Ana wind event, I will program most of my clocks to have an extra morning water, or an extra evening water, whichever one it's not doing regularly. So if you're normally clocks are set to run 6 a.m. Or so in the morning, and I'll set a second start time a couple days a week, or every day for during the St. Anna event, to come on at 6 o'clock at night. And that's just to give the plant some extra water to deal with what's coming, and even over the nights, it's still dry. So the soil is still drying out overnight, even if it's cold. So we need to give it the extra water so that over a few days you don't completely dry out your plants.
Good. So what's a good structure for that Santa Ana winds? um, for your plants, I mean, I know you build a lot of structures. Some people do like the tunnel, like the
Hmm.
plastic tunnel. Some
Hmm.
people do like the little a box with I forgot the name of that thing,
A
that
hardware
like a
cloth.
screen.
Yeah, the hardware cloth.
Yes. So what are some structures that have worked for you and that you build during this season to be um, something good between the hot sun, but at the same time uh, for the Santa Ana winds, and so it's good for the plants of the cool season.
So there's a bunch of different ways you can do it.
Also, sorry, also the
Go ahead.
bugs like the caterpillars.
Yeah. So we do a lot of enclosed boxes. So we build garden boxes that have built-in half-inch hardware cloth enclosures around them with doors. The nice thing about those, because those don't really help too much with the heat or the sun, but the nice thing about those boxes is that we can hang shade cloth over the top of them. The two things that help the most when it comes to heat and when it comes to retaining moisture in the soil are shade cloth and mulch. If you put down a good thick layer of mulch in your garden, that acts like an insulator. And in the fall, what you want is kind of a reverse insulator. You're not trying to trap heat, you're trying to trap the cold. So that if you have a nice cool box because it's been cold for several weeks, then all of a sudden we get a heat wave for 2 or 3 days, but you've got a nice layer of mulch on top of your soil, that's going to help trap and keep the cool temperatures in your box and keep it from escaping quite as quickly, which means it's going to be less likely for your plants to bolt because they're not going to feel the impact of the warm weather quite as much. Shade cloth in Southern California is also a giant help. Shade cloth for most of the season here is helpful. You don't need the full blast of the sun on your, especially on your winter crops. I like to get what's called a 60% shade cloth, meaning that it blocks out about 40% of the light, and that's plenty of light for the plants to do well in. And we also use this during the summer because sometimes the summer sun is too intense and you can burn your plants. So putting this type of shade cloth over your garden helps to reduce. Um, I just lost the word, evaporation from your soil, but it also helps to protect your plants that are really sensitive to heat from quite as much of the sun's heat. And it makes a big difference. It helps quite a bit.
Yes, it reminds me of like trying to grow apples here or avocados, which they can grow, but you need to take consideration the sun and water and all that.
Hmm.
So they're not like native to this place or this weather. So you need to do that artificial environment per se. So the same it looks for the winter crops or the fall crops, which it looks they're more like from the cooler areas of the world,
Hmm.
uh, more. I mean, with less sun.
So the
So
joke
it's
the joke is that that the cool weather crops are crops that like to grow in the fog.
yes. It looks like for example, some people where they can grow the fall crops and winter crops like very easy, blue like blueberries, apples, um, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and all that. They it's a little easier, but they struggle with tomatoes and all those stuff
Hmm.
sometimes. And
Yep.
here's like the opposite, like tomatoes grow up in the streets, or
Yeah.
volunteers,
Yep.
and but we struggle with the other type of crops.
Well, we struggle with winter crops because we don't usually get much of a winter.
Yes. So broccolis need some sort of chill hours or something like that to produce
They
a
just
good
need
head.
they need cooler soil temperatures. They the broccoli and cauliflower like a soil temperature around 55 degrees or lower.
Oh, okay.
So the cooler the better. The cooler the soil.
All right. Regarding your shade structures, how do you do it to prevent the Santa Ana winds to blow up your shade cloth and all that?
Sometimes that definitely happens. A lot of landscape staples usually. A lot of landscaping staples to try and staple things down, bricks, weights, whatever we can do. And if you know the winds are coming and you need to uncover it for a day to save it from blowing across the yard, then just uncover it and put it back on when the winds die down.
Yes. In your experience, last year or last winter, which is like December 2024 to
Mm,
like February 2025,
mhm.
was that one of the worst you have seen? Santa Ana winds, dry season, no rain.
Last winter was tough. It was dry. We did not get a lot of rain. We got heat wave after heat wave after heat wave, um, which it was tough growing last winter for sure. I'm definitely hoping for an easier season this year, but we'll see.
So they're unpredictable, right? So there's like a season when that might happen, but sometimes doesn't happen that much. But sometimes, like last year, was
Every year is
very,
different. Every year is
very
different.
different.
There's only one thing I know to be consistent in gardening is that I'm going to have a different problem next year. Guaranteed.
All right. So you gotta be ready. So
Yeah,
that makes it
just
exciting.
yeah, it keeps it fun, I
Uh,
guess.
Perfect. So just to almost end this amazing uh, talk with you. We know you're a chef too, or you used to work as a chef,
Mm.
and like in your web page, which is Jar to Table Creations, it talks about like the purpose of one of the purposes of gardening is to eat, right? Not just
Hmm.
to grow and say, "Oh, it's beautiful and educational," but to eat it.
100%. Yeah.
So, real quick, how did you connect that? There's a beautiful story on your website, but we want to hear it from you. How did you connect food with growing your own crops, and how did it take you here?
Um, I'll give you the short version, but being a chef, you kind of naturally get curious about food if you're really into it. And I've always really been into cooking, and when you start working in a food industry, you start to learn about the industry. Excuse me. And me being a curious person just started doing what I do, which is started to read and do research on like the food system. And you start to see in the restaurant, especially how wasteful the whole process is, that how bad and how much how bad the whole system is. And so I very quickly started getting upset with the current state of our food system and decided I wanted to start growing my own food. And then I planted one plant, a tomato plant, and it grew. And it was like one of the most satisfying things I had ever done. And so I just kept doing it. And then my daughter came along and I got really serious about, what we were eating and what we were growing. And for years I had a, excuse me, I had a large home garden. And then slowly but surely I started helping friends and family members out, help them build a garden. Was over at their house telling them what to do and helping them tend for it. And one day my wife was like, I think you could make this a business. And I said, I've been thinking about that for a long time. It seems like I have a unique set of skills being a carpenter, a former chef, and somebody who has become kind of an expert in edible gardening. And so I just smashed all those things into a business and gave it a shot.
That's great. And can you tell us real quick, like what's your business, Jar to Table Creations? If you have a web page or any social media
Yep.
or contacts.
Yep, you can find me on my webpage, yardtotablecreations.com. It's all spelled out. And then you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. On my website, I do write a newsletter and a blog every month. So the newsletter is pretty much just this is what's going on and this is what's going to happen in your garden over the next month. And the blogs are food history blogs. So I like to do research into how we got a Haas avocado and the history of poor food like risotto and paella. And I really like food history, so I spend a little bit of time diving into some interesting topics there.
Nice. And you also have a YouTube channel, right?
Correct.
The same name, Jar to Table Creations.
Yard, yep, Yard to Table Creations on YouTube. We try to put out a decent amount of content. A lot of the stuff that I'm putting out there is, obviously educational, explaining to people what's going on. But sometimes we have a little fun. Sometimes we cook.
Excellent. Just last question. It's like two questions in one. Since you have that education on cooking and making dishes out of nowhere, basically,
Yes,
with the
true.
creativity and all that. What are maybe one or two recipes that you can share with us? Hopefully, we can see that on one of your videos on your channel. But
Yeah.
just real quick now, for the winter ingredients or the fall ingredients of the fall garden.
Sure. And I always, every newsletter that I post every month ends with a recipe. So there
Oh,
are a whole bunch of recipes in my newsletters. This time of year, we're not quite into growing fall crops yet. if we're still trying to use up what's left from summer. But regardless of the season, I have a couple of go-to dishes that I make all the time because it's an easy way to use up whatever you have. One of them is to make a pot of beans. You can put, bacon or beef and pork, whatever you want for a protein in there. I always have fresh stock in my freezer that I make, and whatever vegetables you have, some beans, and boom, you've got a delicious meal that is going to feed my family for a week. I'm also a big soup head. I really, really love soup of all kinds. So, and you can make a soup out of anything. I mean, anything. You can make a pureed soup. You can make a chunky soup, a brothy soup. You can make literally make soup out of anything. So those are especially in the fall when it's cold. I love just a hot bowl of like brothy soup with some noodles and basically anything Asian flavored. Those are my go-tos for sure.
All right. Thank you, Craig. So now you know, his webpage, you can find some recipes. And again, I think you also have like maybe like last month you or this month you uploaded a video on some techniques for cooking, preserving, and all that, right, on your channel.
There's a few of those videos. There's also a video on how to the one I really like is how to kind of structure your
Oh
habits with
yes,
your food through the week. So
yes,
how to make
that
sure you're
one.
using everything that's in your refrigerator and not throwing things away, making sure that you're, writing a menu every week, so that you're not going to the store blind and buying a bunch of stuff you're not going to use and then inevitably throw away. And then, how to use everything you're growing in your garden. That was one of the more recent ones for sure.
Yes, that's awesome because I mean, like you said, when you harvested your first tomato, it was a great feeling, and then if you eat it,
Mhm.
it's even
It's even
also
better.
great.
It's even better.
But if you know how to prepare it so it tastes even and looks better, tastes better and maybe look better, or just tastes better, or it's like a good ingredient on a good dish.
Mhm.
I mean, I haven't got that experience yet. I just harvest like tomato and eat it, or maybe try to do like something, but nothing fancy. But that's I think I'm gonna make one of my goals to know how to cook with maybe radish. The only thing like as a Hispanic or Latino, we use radishes is just like for tacos
Garnish.
or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I'm
garnish.
sure there's a lot of way of cooking radishes, uh,
Do you know
daikon
how the French
radishes.
do you know how the French like to eat radishes?
No,
They dip them in butter and salt. It's delicious.
wow. Oh, nice. And also like the what we have the Chinese cabbage and I mean there's a lot of recipes and that you can look out there and learn from a lot of websites and also from our friend Craig here. And hopefully, I'll learn more about that, and you can help us too. Thank you, Craig, for your
Absolutely.
time,
Thank
and
you, Jose.
it was a great pleasure and a lot of learning. Like I said, I tell him when I hear you, it's like hearing an audiobook, like